Hey everyone, and welcome back. It's Gina from orchidandopal.com. Today I am going to be showing you how to make these particular pendants that I first shared with the contents of the Moonlit Terrace box that I put together with Beading School. Now, that box has sold out, but these are pretty common materials that you may even already have or can easily find. We'll be using a 12mm crystal Rivoli stone, as well as some 2mm and some 4mm round beads. You can use anything like drux or pearls for those, and then some 15-0 seed beads. Here's a look at the back of the piece that is done in a lavender and black. As you can see, that stone is tucked in there nicely, and we have this almost starburst-like design that frames it up. I haven't attached those two pendants to a chain or anything, but the idea is that you could either attach a jump ring to one of those outer loops of seed beads, or you could bead weave a wire guard right into the beadwork and attach something from there, or create your very own special bail to go along with this. For beading thread today, I'll be using the 6-pound FireLine, and since we're going to be weaving back and forth through some 15-0 seed beads, I recommend going with either a size 11 or 12 beading needle for the project. At this point, you can go ahead and thread your beading needle, and once you do that and gather up all your materials, we can jump into this tutorial. I also want to mention that the full list of materials and links to the products that I'm using today can be found right beneath the video in the description section, so feel free to take a look at that and find out exactly what you'll need. And to get us started, we're going to be working with our 2mm round beads. I have some of these drux right here, and I'm going to pick up 14 of those to get us started, and we're going to end up forming these into a loop and passing through all of these again, going a little bit past where we started. So get 14 of those onto your thread, and then you can pull them down towards your tail. Leave yourself about a 6-inch tail, something you can weave in later. And we're going to take our needle and go back through all of those drux beads again. And go just one past where you started. So now that you have a loop of your 2mm beads like this, we can move on to the next step, which is to pick up a 15-0, a 2mm, a 15-0, a 2mm, 15-0, 2mm, and one more 15-0. So have something like this on your needle, and then what you'll do is sew back through the same 2mm that you're currently exiting and sew through the next two 2mm beads. So you've just added now another smaller loop onto the existing loop of 2mm beads, and we're going to repeat this all the way around. So we're going to end up with 7 of these, and they're going to be spaced equally distanced apart. So once again, that was a 15-0, 2mm, 15-0, 2mm, 15-0, 2mm, and one more 15-0. So back through the 2mm bead that you're currently exiting, and also through the next 2 beads, and pull. So continue doing that all the way around until you have your 7 smaller loops, and we'll meet back to continue on with the next steps. All right, so this is what you should have so far, and we're going to begin working on the seed bead portion that is going to be on top of the crystal stone and holding it in. And I'm already coming out of this 2mm bead right here. I'm going to pick up 5 15-0s, And I'm going to skip the next 2mm and sew through the next one. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. So once again, pick up 5 15/0s, skip the next 2mm bead, and sew through the next one. Make sure that those seed beads are sitting on top of the beadwork. And this will all come together as we go. So just get those in place at the moment. And we will meet back once you have 7 groups of 5 15/0s on that inner loop, just like this. Now when you get to your very last section, you will go through the druck bead like you normally would, but then continue on by sewing up through the first 3 15/0s. Now you'll bring the peaks of all those seed beads together, first by picking up 2 more 15/0s, and then looking at your next section of 5 15/0s right here, you're going to go through the third one. So the one that will be at the peak of that group of 5, right in the middle. And then give it a little turn. And you're going to repeat that all the way around, pick up 2 seed beads, and then again go through the third seed bead in that next section. Turn, pick up 2 seed beads, and sew through the third. This is going to bring the seed beads together and hold our stone into place. And one more. When you get to the last one, go through the third seed bead in the next section like you normally would, and then sew around that central ring of seed beads one more time to really tighten up that center section. So after you've gone around that ring of seed beads again to reinforce it, then you will just follow your thread path down to the other side. We're going to start working on what will be the back of the piece. And I'm going to come out of one of these 2mm, and we're going to actually do the same thing we did before, adding in 5 15/0s. And I'm going this way now. I'm going to skip the next 2mm and go through the next. So we're going to do that same thing just on the back of the piece now. And once again, picking up 5 and skipping the next 2mm and sewing through the next. You can continue doing that all the way around. And then we will meet back to continue on where we will insert our stone and start tightening that up. And then just like we did before, when you get to the last section, go through the druck like you normally would, but then also sew up through the first 3 seed beads that you get to. And be coming out of the peak of that section. And you should have something that looks like this. And at this point, you can take your Rivoli and put it face down into your piece. And we're going to start tightening up the section around it. So it'll be a little loose at first, but we'll reinforce it after we make our first initial pass around. And then our stone will be secure, and we'll continue on with our piece. So for now, coming out of this peak bead or the third seed bead in this section, this time we'll want to pick up 4 15-0s and then sew through the third seed bead in the next section. Repeat that all the way around. So again, 4 15-0s. Through the peak of the next section and give it a little turn. 4 15-0s and through the peak. All right, so now we have this loose ring of beads that are sitting right around the stone. What you'll do now is you're going to go around that ring of seed beads one more time or 2 more times at least. And every time you go through a few beads, you'll keep pulling and tightening that ring of beads up against the back of the Rivoli so it will be sitting securely in place. So just hold that with your thumb and your forefinger as you bead around, and we'll go through a few beads at a time. And give it a good pull, and you'll see that this starts to really tighten up as you go. All right, so your piece should look like this now with your stone securely in place. There's a look at the front of the piece as well. And what we're going to do now is follow our thread path so that we're coming out of one of these 2mm right here. So I'm going to go down through these couple of seed beads and head down this 2mm. And then on one of your little loops, you'll go up through the 15-0 and the 2mm. So once you're exiting right in that area on one of those little loops, you can then pick up one of your 4mm beads and then head down the 2mm and the 15-0 on the next loop. Follow your thread path through the next 2mm bead. And then head up the 15-0 and the 2mm on that next loop. Repeat that all the way around, so pick up a 4mm, head down through the 2mm and the 15-0 on the next loop. Follow the thread path, going through the next 2mm bead, and head up through the 15-0 and the 2mm to get into position to add your next 4mm bead. So keep doing that all the way around, and then we will meet back. All right, we're going to continue through the next 2mm bead down here. And sew up through the next 15/0 and 2mm. And now we are going to sew through the 4mm that we get to next, as well as that next 15/0. And we're going to pick up 3 15/0s, then sew through the next 15/0, 4mm, and 15/0. And we'll do that all the way around, adding 3 15/0s to those 2mm druck bead sections. So we're in position again. We'll pick up 3 15/0s, then we'll sew through the 15/0, 4mm, and the next 15/0. Once all those groups of 3 are in place, you can then continue on through the next 2mm and the next 15/0. Now we'll add some beads to wrap around the 4mm rounds. So this time we're going to pick up 7 15/0s. And we'll skip the 4mm and go through the 15/0, 2mm, and 15/0 that follow it. Again, pick up 7 and go through the 15/0, 2mm, and 15/0 that follow that next 4mm. So you can see that we're framing those out, and continue to do that all the way around. So once you get to your last section, you'll go through the 15/0, the 2mm, and 15/0 again. And I'm actually just gonna flip my piece over. We are going to be adding in now groups of 8 15/0s around each of our 4mm beads now. So coming out right before the next 4mm out of that 15/0 right there, I'm gonna pick up now 8 15/0s. And then just like we did before, we're going to skip the 4mm and go through the next 15/0, 2mm, and 15/0. So now you've got something that looks like this, and this is something we're going to tack down in the next step. So continue on, pick up 8 15/0s. Skipping that 4mm and sewing through the next 15/0, 2mm, and 15/0. Once you've done that all the way around, we'll meet back and continue on. All right, I'm now at my last section, so I'm picking up those 8 seed beads again. And I'm gonna go through 15/0, 2mm, and 15/0 like we normally would. And then this time, once we get to that new group of 8 seed beads that is in front of that next 4mm, We're gonna go down through the first 5 of those. So I've gone through 3. Let's go through the next 2. So coming out of the 5th one, and this is where you may need to switch to a size 12 beading needle if you haven't already. But what you want to do is look for the 2mm bead that is directly in front of the 4mm. So not one of these on the sides, but the one on the front. This is the one you're going to be tacking down these seed beads to. So go through just that 2mm. And you can see it brings those seed beads up to it. Now go through the 4th and 5th in that group of 8. Pull and go through the 2mm bead one more time. And then go through the 4th and 5th seed beads again. Up through those next 3 seed beads. Continue on through the 15-0, 2mm, and 15-0 that you get to next right there. And then just keep repeating what you just did, going down through the first 5 seed beads that you get to next in the group of 8. Looking for the 2mm bead that's right in front of that 4mm, going just through that one. Pull. Then go through seed beads 4 and 5. Start tacking those down. Go through that same 2mm again. And then follow the thread path once again through the seed beads to get to your next section. And at this point, your beadwork is complete. So all you need to do now is you can weave in your tail thread and make several half-hitch knots to secure that and clip off any excess thread you may have. There's a little peek at the back, once again, what that should look like. And you'll just use your fingers to pull all of those seed beads to the edges of the beads on the outer loop. And it'll frame those out nicely. And you can use this in a variety of ways as a component, adding this to a simple chain by slipping in a jump ring around any of these outer groups of seed beads. You can also weave in a wire guard, like I mentioned, wherever you'd like. You can attach this to additional beaded components. So there's really a lot that you can do with this piece. So there you have it. The piece is all finished. I hope you enjoyed making this pendant or checking out this tutorial. I'm so glad to have you here. As a reminder, you can check right down below the video for the full list of materials and links to the products that I used today. Everything was found in the Moonlit Terrace box, which had sold out, but like I said, these products are pretty common, so you may already even have what you need. Feel free to leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you plan to give this a try or have given it a try or anything else you'd like to say. Be sure to give the video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it and hit that subscribe button while you're here. And also feel free to share this with your other bead loving friends. That's all I have for now. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading.